Okay, so exceptions. So what are exceptions basically? Okay, if you see, like, there are two types of errors, like, that we see in Java. One is compile time errors. Compile time errors are nothing but, like, when you print something, when you type something wrong, okay, then you'll the compiler itself show you an error. Okay, let me open this one new. I'll create a new package here. Okay, the package name is, let's say, exceptions back. Okay, so under these exceptions, I will create a class. Okay, exceptions one. I'm just creating, like, some class under that one. Okay, for example, like, I want to create, like, an integer local variable under this one. Okay, int a equals to 10, let's say. Okay, for example, if you don't, like, print type it correctly, then it will throw an error, okay, saying that, like, int cannot be resolved to a type. Okay, so this is a compile time error. Okay, so not only this compile time errors, when we are, like, developing the programs, we will get, like, runtime errors are also. Okay, these runtime errors are mostly exceptions. Okay, but again, these runtime errors are divided into two types. One is exception and another one is error. Okay, exception and error. Okay, just to remember this picture. If you remember this picture, like, it will give you, like, a lot of answers on these exceptions. Okay. Okay, are you able to see this one clearly, this picture?
It is visible clear.
Okay, fine. Okay, so again, the runtime errors, they are divided into two things: exception and error. Okay, so these exceptions and errors are handled, like, in Java, and the main class, the root class for these exceptions and errors, it is throwable class. Okay, we know that, like, each and every class in Java, that's by default, like, it will extend to object class. Okay, we know this one. We have discussed this one earlier. Object is the primary root class for any class that you create in Java. Okay, so for exceptions, we have something called throwable class. Of course, this throwable, like, this indirectly extends object. Okay, so the main root class for exceptions or errors in Java is throwable. Okay, and then from throwable, we have something called exception and error. Let's discuss about this error. Okay, error is something, okay, that is not recoverable. Okay, you cannot recover this error. You have to fix this one. You have to fix this one. Either the hardware or software should be fixed, okay, or you have to fix the program. It cannot be recoverable. Okay, and we have different kinds of errors, like, virtual machine error. Okay, in this one, we have something like a stack overflow error or out of memory error, exception assertion error, exception initialization error, IO error, AWT error. So these are, like, some of the examples for errors. Okay, just remember this one, like, no one, like, will ask you, like, give an example of error or something. Okay, but just remember this one. Okay, I'll show you an example of this one, out of memory error, how you get, like, out of memory error. Okay, let me say I'll create a program and I will show you this one. Okay, okay, so we have a program already here. Let me say, like, I'm creating a list here. Okay, list of integers I am creating. Okay, L1 equals to, okay, new array list of integer. Okay, so this is an array list I have created. Let me import this list, import list. Okay, and also import this array list, import array list. Okay, so these are the, this is a list I have created. Okay, now let us say I'm adding elements to this array. Okay, how do I add elements to this array? We use add method, right? L1 dot add, okay, L1 dot add, Okay, let us say I'm adding some 200 element to this one. Okay, let me put this one into a loop. Okay, for int, okay, uh, I equals to 0, I is less than 100, I plus plus. Okay, this is a for loop. So what happens here? I'm adding this 200 element to this list, like 100 times I'm adding this one. Okay, no issues. Okay, now let us say I'm removing like this one. So what happens in this case? It will add continuously, infinite number of times. Okay, because I removed this condition, right? It goes into a continuous loop and it will add 200 to this L1. Okay, now let us run this one and see what happens. Run as Java application. Okay, it went into a continuous loop and it is running. Okay, let's see how much time it will run. Okay, so it executed, it went into a continuous loop. Finally, it threw an error. Okay, what is that error? This is also called like an exceptional loop, but it is java.lang.out of memory error. Okay, because this will be added to this list and finally the whole memory is filled with this one, with this list itself. That is why it is showing java.lang.out of memory error. Okay, so in this case we have to fix this program. Okay, if you don't fix this you cannot proceed further. Okay, so do you understand this out of memory error? Okay, this is an example of error, but we have many more errors like this. I have shown you an example for this out of memory error. We have stack overflow error, okay, and assertion errors, exception in initializer error, IO error, AWT error, like this. Okay, we have multiple errors. Okay, so these exceptions, the runtime errors, they are divided into two things, exception and error. So I have shown you an example for out of memory error in this one. Okay, now coming to exceptions, we have we have these different exceptions. Okay, these are called runtime exceptions, IO exceptions, SQL exception, AWT exception. Like this, we have these are different kinds of exceptions that we have. Okay, and under the runtime exceptions, what are these runtime exceptions? Runtime exceptions are something that exceptions that you will come to know only during the runtime. Okay, these for example arithmetic exception. What is an arithmetic exception? If you try to divide something by 0, for example, I'm saying, okay, system dot, okay, uh, let's say not a system, just I'm trying to do in, let's say int a is equal to 100. Okay, this is what I have. Int b equals to 100 by 0. I'm trying to divide the value of a with 0, a divided by 0. It won't throw you any error or anything here. Okay, but if you run this one, okay, it will give you java.lang arithmetic exception division by 0. Okay, this is called a runtime exception because once you run it, then only you will be able to see this exception, otherwise you won't be able to see this exception. So these are called runtime exceptions. Okay, runtime exceptions are something which you can see at runtime, and the examples are arithmetic exception is one thing. Okay, null pointer exception, class cast exception, index out of bounds exception. We have seen this array index out of bounds exception, right? If you declare an array and if you are trying to access an element from the array where the index is not there in the array, then we will see the array index out of bounds exception. Similarly, we have string index out of bounds exception. Okay, these are all runtime exceptions. Okay, The other things here, we have like something called IO exceptions, SQL exceptions, AWT exceptions, all these things we have. For example, under IO exception, we have EOF exception, file not found exception, interrupted exception. So all these things we have. These are called checked exceptions. Okay, these runtime exceptions are also called non-checked exceptions. All these other things, these are called checked exceptions. Checked exceptions means for these exceptions, compiler itself knows that okay, this will throw an exception definitely, so you have to handle that exception. Okay, I'll show you an example for this checked exceptions. Okay, so these are called checked exceptions. So compiler itself knows that, okay, compiler itself knows that your program will throw an exception. Okay, when we use like some when we do some specific actions, and compiler itself tells you that okay, you have to handle this exception. So these exceptions are those kinds of exceptions. They are called checked exception. So here, if you see runtime exception and its subclasses and error and its subclasses are unchecked exceptions. That means, sorry, these runtime exceptions and its subclasses are like arithmetic exception, null pointer exception. These are all subclasses. All these things and also error and its subclasses are all called unchecked exceptions. What does it mean by unchecked exceptions? You cannot know until you run that one. Okay, that is why it is called an unchecked exceptions. Okay, all the other exceptions are called checked exceptions. So all these exceptions like IO exception, SQL exception, all these things, they are checked exceptions because compiler itself will tell you that okay, these are there might be like some exception you may get, you have to handle that exception. Okay, so these are checked exceptions. We have seen this one, right? Out of memory error, until unless we run this, we cannot see that like we will get an out of memory error. Similarly, arithmetic exception, if you run that program, then only you can know that okay, it will throw an arithmetic exception. Okay, so all the subclasses of runtime exception and its subclasses and also error and its subclasses are unchecked exceptions. Everything else is a checked exception. Okay, so just remember this picture. You don't need to like remember like now all these exceptions, but it's better like no one will ask you. But the question can be like something like can you give examples of like some of the exceptions? You can say that arithmetic exception, null pointer exception, array index out of bounds exception, class cast exception, file not found exception. Okay, so these are all some of the examples of the exception. So what is an error in Java means error is a subclass of throwable, and error is something which we have to fix it. We cannot recover that one. Example is an out of memory error. If they ask you like to give some example for that out of memory error, just create a program with a list and add elements continuously to it. Finally, you will get an out of memory error because the memory will be totally consumed. Okay. Now coming to this one, java.lang.throwable. Okay, throwable is the root. Yeah, throwable is the root class for exception and its subtype, uh, uh, and error and its subtypes. Okay, it's the root class for exception and error. In other words, it is superclass for exception and error. Java.lang.throwable class extends object class. Okay, it defines two subclasses, exception and error. Now coming to exception, java.lang.exception is the class for all types of exception. Okay, it extends the throwable class. Exception are due to programming logic and it is recoverable. Exception is something, okay, they are due to programming logic and it can be recoverable. Exceptions are categorized into checked exception and unchecked exception. Okay, so examples are runtime exception, SQL exception, IO exception, file not found exception, arithmetic exception, and all these things, they are examples for exception. Now coming to error, java.lang.error is super class for all types of errors. it extends throwable class. Errors are due to lack of system resources. Okay, system resource means memory that we have seen. That's a system resource, right? And it is non-recoverable. All errors fall into unchecked exception category, and it is raised due to lack of system resources at runtime. It is out of programming scope, such as type of error can't be predicted, may be well planned. Care can be taken to avoid this kind of errors. Examples are virtual machine error, assertion error, out of memory error, and all these things. Okay. Okay. So how to handle exceptions? Okay. So first of all, why do we want to handle exceptions? Okay. Okay. Why do we want to handle exceptions? Let me show you this one. Let me show you a program. Okay, let us say I have declared like two arrays. Okay, let's say two integer arrays I am declaring. ARR1, okay, this equals to 10 comma 20 comma, okay, 30 comma 40 comma 50. Okay, and let us say I have another array which is int ARR2 equals to, I'll say, okay, let us say 2 comma 4 comma 2 comma 4 comma 6. I have these elements, two arrays I have. Okay, what I would like to do, I would like to divide each and every element of this one with each and every element of this second array. So what I can do, I'll say for int, okay, I equals to 0. So I am looping over the first array. Okay, I is equal to 0, I is less than arr1 dot length I plus plus. This is my first array. Okay, now I will loop over the second array, and I will divide each and every element of this first array with the second array. Okay, so let us say I have for int j equals to 0, j is less than, okay, arr2 dot length j plus plus. Now I am looping over each and every element of the second array. Now I'll say system dot out dot println, okay, and arr1 of I division by arr2 of j. Okay, I'm printing each and every element of this one. Let me run this one, run as Java application. Okay, it will print me like all these values. Okay, so the first value is 10, right? So it prints like 10 divided by 2, 5, 10 divided by 4, it is 2.5, but since it is printing an error, it is printing as 2. Okay, let me print it, or let me convert this one to float. Okay, so what we have to do, we have to cache this one to float. So float, okay, I'm converting this one to float. Okay, I'm casting this one to float. If I run this one, run a Java application. Okay, 10 divided by 4. Okay, still it is 2.0. Okay, so I think like each and every element of this one should be converted to float first, and then we have to, let me do this one. Yeah, this one I have converted to float. Okay, let me run this one, run as Java application. Okay, now you got this. Okay, so first we have converted each and every element of this one to float. Okay, and then we are dividing these two float values and we are getting these values. Okay, first 10 divided by 2, 5, 10 divided by 4, 2.5, 10 divided by 6, 1.6. Okay, let me do one thing here. Okay, uh, I'll say like system dot out dot println. Okay, So I'll say working on ARR, working on plus ARR 1 of I, so that we will clearly know on which element we are working. Okay, so now say working on 10. Okay, 10, we are dividing it by 2, 4, and 6. Similarly, working on 20, we are dividing it by 2, 4, and 6. Like this we have seen. Okay, this is working fine. Let us say, okay, the second element, which is 4 here, I'm making it to 0. Let's say all these elements like you get from database and you don't know like what the values that you get from database. Let's say you are getting it like 2, 0, and 6. What happens here? So the first time it will try to divide 10 by 2. Okay, and then it will try to divide 10 by 0, and since this we cannot divide like something by 0, it will throw an exception. Just see this here at this point, like we'll get an exception. So if we run this one, run as Java application. Oh, okay. So for float, like it won't work because for float it will give you infinity. Let me take out these float things here. I'm not converting this one to float, okay? But I will just simply print these values. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna need, yeah. Okay, let us say I have this one only 2, 4, 6. I'm dividing some integer values. Okay, so if I run this one, it will show me 2, 5, 2, 1. Okay, working on 10. Okay, 10 divided by 2, 5. 10 divided by 4, it is 2.5. But since we are dividing integers, it will give 2 value, and 10 divided by 6, it is 1.3 something, 1.6 something. Okay, and it will show you 1. Okay, now let me make this second value as 0. Okay, if I make the second value is 0, let me run this one, run as Java application. Okay, and see, so the first time gets 10, 10 divided by 2, it becomes 5, and then next element it will get 10 divided by 0. 10 divided by 0, it will throw an exception and it cannot proceed further. Okay, but we want to proceed further with this one. Okay, and we would like to proceed further. For example, like after this for loop, let's say system dot out dot println. Okay, other steps of program. Okay, so let's say we want to proceed further, even though we are getting an exception. Okay, we have to handle this exception. Okay, if this is not if something is dividing something with 0, then we have to handle that one. We have to proceed further. We don't want our program to be failed. In those cases, we'll go for exception handling. Okay, exception handling. How to handle these exceptions in Java? Okay, we mainly have three things. One is try catch finally. Okay, we can create this try catch finally block, or we can use throws, and we can use throw keyword. Okay, these are the three ways we can handle exceptions. One is try catch finally, throws, and throw. Okay, so first let us see this try catch finally. Okay, if we think a particular piece of code throws an exception, okay, we put it in try block and we write the code to catch the exception in catch block. Okay, if we think a particular piece of code throws an exception, okay, then we put it in try block. Here we know that this is what it is causing the exception, because we are here we are dividing something, then we know that it is causing exception. So we will put this one in a try block. Let's say try. Okay, we'll put it in a try block. Okay, because this is what it is causing the exception. Okay, and then what we'll do, if we think a particular piece of code throws an exception, we put it in try block and we'll write a code to catch the exception. Any code that must be executed after a try catch block completes is put in a final block. Okay, so now whatever the code that is causing the exception, we will put it in a try block. And then if something happens, if an exception is raised, okay, then we have to handle that exception. So for this one, we have to use catch block, catch, okay, try catch. And here, okay, here, okay, again catch, okay, we have something called exception. Okay, this is the high level class that we are using, super class, because exception is nothing but the super class for all the exceptions. Okay, we are directly using a super class here. Okay, here we'll catch this exception. Let us say I'm saying like system.out.println, okay, dividing, okay, using 0, something I'm printing. Okay, so what happens here? Whatever the statement that causes the exception, we will put it in a try block. And if that exception, if some exception is caused because of this statement, we have to handle that exception. So we will use a catch block. Okay, in the catch block, we will do whatever we want. If the exception is raised, if everything is fine, okay, let's say it is not causing an exception, then it will execute this one, it will come out. If an exception is caused, then it will come to the catch block and it will execute this one and it will proceed further. Okay, let me run this one and see. Run as Java application. Okay, see the first time 10 divided by 2, 5. Fine. The next one is 10 divided by 0. So it caused an exception. So in this case, it will go into catch block and it is executing this one, dividing using 0. Okay. Let's say like division with 0. Okay. Okay, division with 0. And again the next one 10 divided by 6. Okay, that will be executed successfully, so it won't go into catch block. Okay, and then again 20 divided by 2. Okay, division with working on 20. 20 divided by 2, 10, which will be printed successfully. Again the next thing is 20 divided by 0, which will cause an exception. Okay, so it will go into catch block and it will execute this one. Okay, so do you understand this one, this try catch block? Are any questions on this one?
It is clear, sir.
Okay, fine. Now let me,
Do we use finally in this try catch?
yeah, we'll come to that one. Okay, so now we have like try catch and we have also like talking about this finally. Okay, we use like try catch finally. Okay, finally is a block which will be executed whether that an exception is raised or not. Okay, so under a try catch block we'll have something called like we can have finally. Okay, and I will say system.out.println. Okay, this will be executed always. Okay, so what it will do, it will first, okay, if no exception is raised, okay, then it will execute the try statement and it will go into finally statement. If an exception is raised, it will execute this one and it will be it will go into this one. Okay, so finally is a block of statements under try catch which will be executed always whether an exception is raised or not. Okay, let me run this one. Okay, run as Java application. Okay, see first it worked on, it is working on 10. So 10 divided by 2, no exception is raised, so it printed 5 and that means this statement is executed. Now it came to finally statement and it executed, this will be executed always. Okay, now next is 10 divided by 0. 10 divided by 0, okay, it will cause an exception, so it will execute this one, division with 0. So it executed division with 0 and then finally statement is executed, this will be executed always. Okay, now again 10 divided by 6. Okay, so no exception, this will be executed and then again this will be executed, so it will see 1, this will be executed always. Okay, so finally block is something which will be executed always when whether an exception is raised or not. Okay, so this is finally. Why do we use finally? Generally, like when you are working with files or database operations, if there is an exception in the middle of those, for example, the database table that you want to read. Okay, so what we'll do generally is like when we are working with the database operations. Okay, let us say like yeah, when we are working with like some files or okay or from our databases, what we'll do is first we have to open these resources. Okay, first we will open these resources and then do some operations like read these files or read the database table, something like this. And once this is closed, then we have, once everything is done, we have to close these resources. Otherwise, if we don't close these resources, we'll get like something called memory leak errors, memory leak issues. Okay, these are called like if we don't close these resources, so we have to definitely close this one. For example, you open this database or file, but while reading like these things like some exceptions occur. Let us say some exceptions like you'll get some, for example, if the file you want to read is not there in that directory, or if the database table that you want to connect to is not there in the database, then you will get like some exceptions saying that that file is not there, or like that file not found exception, or the table is not there, something like that. So in those cases, what we'll do is we'll use try catch blocks, and finally we use finally, okay, which will generally close these resources. Okay, so this is why we use this finally. Just remember this one, finally. Okay, okay. Now let me go into this. Okay, so this is about try catch and finally. Okay, so try catch block, try statement, catch exception statements, and finally statements. Okay, okay. And one more thing is, let's say here we have used just exception E, right? Instead of this one, if you know the exception clearly, like that, like it will cause an arithmetic exception. Okay, we can use that also, arithmetic exception. Okay, because here we know that it is division with 0, so it throws arithmetic exception. So we use arithmetic exception object here. So if you see this one, so if you see the picture, in this picture we have this runtime exception, and this one we have this arithmetic exception, right? So we have to use this one, arithmetic exception E, we can use. Okay, but mostly what happens is sometimes we don't know what kind of exception it may throw, so we can use this super class exception. So it will handle any type of exception, any type of runtime exception under this one. So you'll see the just we'll say like exception here. Okay, and what we can do is like we can print this error also. Here we are printing our own message. Okay, sometimes like what we can do is we can print this error message also. So this is an uh, exception class object, so it has got like different methods. So for example, we can get this message, the error message. Okay, e dot get message, it prints that message. Now if I run this one, run as Java application. Okay, the message is division by 0. That is what like the message that we are getting. Okay, so you can use this also like this, or we can print like our own message into this. Okay, so this is how we go with exceptions, try catch and finally blocks. Any questions on this one so far? Okay, fine.
What is finally is mean? Like I didn't get it.
What is that?
What is the use of finally? I didn't get it. Like what is the use of finally?
Yeah, finally, yeah, okay. So you understand that like finally will always be executed, right? Whether it throws an
Yeah.
exception or it not throws an exception, it will always be executed. Okay. So this is an example where we use finally. For example, when you are working with files or database, First, you will open this resource and you will perform these operations. Okay, read operations and all these things. Okay, and finally,
Okay.
you have to close those resources, close these resources. Okay, for example, like if you don't close this one, you will get like some memory leak issues. Okay, so you have to close this one. For example, you open the resource and you are doing like some read operations or some operations on that one, on the files or database. You may get like some exception. So what will happen? Okay, it will it won't proceed further. That means like generally like
Yeah.
we'll put this one in
Mm,
try block, and then we will have a
okay.
catch block. Okay,
Mm,
for example, if you do these ones like it may not like close these ones. So what we will do is we'll use these try catch blocks, and in the finally block we will put these close conditions. So whether this operation is successful or not, it will always close the resources.
but you have given the example where you have not put this word finally, then also it was closing and program was like moving forward
Yeah,
in the previous.
because finally will always be executed. So whether
Okay.
an exception is raised or not, okay, finally will be executed. For example, there is no exception, so it will execute this try block statement and it will execute this finally. Okay, and let us say if some exception is raised, then it will execute this catch block statement and it will execute finally.
Okay. So is there an example where try and catch block we are putting an program is getting close and then finally is coming into the picture and it is running the program
We will see
forward?
something. We will see something in the file operations. Okay.
Okay.
But for now,
Okay.
just remember that finally is a block which will be always executed whether an exception is raised or not. Okay.
Okay.
If the exception is not raised, the statements under try will be executed. If an exception is, and then finally will be executed. If an exception is raised, then the statements under catch block will be executed and then finally will be executed.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, so that's what like you have to remember at this moment. Okay. Okay, now let us so this is about try catch blocks. Okay, so try catch blocks are mainly used for handling unchecked exceptions. Okay, now coming to checked exceptions. Okay, we'll see. We have seen try catch finally. If we think a particular piece of code throws an exception, we put it in the try block and we write code to catch the exception in the catch block. Any code that must be executed after the try catch block is try catch block completes is put in the finally block. Okay? The exceptions we handle using try catch block are called unchecked exceptions. Okay, sometimes we know that some methods may throw some exceptions, and these can be handled by using throws keyword when we define a class. These are called checked exceptions. Okay, now let me show you an example here. So this is the example like that we have seen so far. Okay, for sorry. So this is what like this is 250. This is an example like that I gave here. Sorry guys. Okay, so yeah, try catch blocks. There is another example. Yeah, how to use try catch. I have shown you here, and I have shown you this finally also. Okay, now throws keyword. Okay, throws keyword is used to declare that a method may throw an exception. For example, when we are creating a file, IO exception may occur. Okay, okay. So yeah, let me show you this example. Okay, finally, like we'll see it here. Okay, okay, fine. Let us say like we have a file and we want to write some content to the file. Okay, we'll see it like these things, file writer and all these things in the files section. But for now what we have to do is we have let us say we have a file and we have to write something to the file. So first we have to declare like where that file is. Okay, we have to get access to that file. So for that one we have a class called file writer. Okay, and we are saying that file writer file is equal to new file of this one. Okay, we have to give the path to this. Okay, and we are writing, we use write method under file writer, and we are writing something, okay, to that file, and finally we are closing that one, we are closing that file. So we are closing that file. Okay, but this may throw an exception, so we'll put it like in a try block. Under catch block, okay, we are putting the, we're saying that, okay, some error occurred. Okay, so this is what the class is. Okay, let me show you this. I'm copying like, this same thing here. Okay, let me create a new class here. New class. Okay, so exceptions to, we will see about the files in the next topic. Okay, so file writer, I have to import file writer from Java. Okay, and I have to also import this IO exception. Okay, now what I'm doing is I'm just creating this file writer object by sending the path of this one. Okay, now I'm writing something into this. Okay, and then I'm closing this file object. Okay, and then I'm catching, I'm putting it everything into this try catch block, and then I am printing something. Okay, what happens in this case? Okay, suppose this file is not there. Okay, this path doesn't exist at all. For example, in this K drive is not there in my system. Okay, if you see this one, okay, see the I don't have any K drive in my system. I have C, D, and F. Okay, I don't have K drive in my system, so it cannot write this one to this file. Okay, so in your case, Ankur, you are the one like who asked this one, right? So this file dot close, I can put it in finally block. Okay, but again here, like, since this file is local to this try block, okay, we have to define something, the file writer, before all these blocks. So I will write this one, file writer, file equals to something, I'll put it as null. Okay, and I'll remove this one. Okay, and add throws declaration. Again, the problem will be like, okay, yeah. Okay, so if you see this one, okay, I have created a file writer here, file writer object, and I am trying to, like, read this path K colon, this one. Okay, and file dot write, I'm trying to write something to this one. If this is executed, that is fine. Otherwise, it will throw an exception. So I am catching this exception, and finally I am closing this file in the finally block. Okay, you understand this one, Ankur?
Yeah, I think somehow I think
Yeah,
after practice
see,
on it will get. Yeah.
yeah, just practice on this one. Anything, okay, don't worry, like, much about this finally block, okay, because we don't use this one, like, very much often, like in our Selenium, okay, but for now, just remember that anything that we want to close, anything that we want to execute, whether an exception occurs or not, we'll put that one into finally, that's all. Okay, for the time being, let me remove this one. Okay, because I don't want to, like, confuse you with this one. Okay, let me put this again, the file writer here in this one, so which is file writer. Okay, file. Okay, let me file dot close. Okay, okay, so I'm handling this one. For example, now if I run this one, run as Java application, okay, it will throw an error, some error occurred. So, and we are handling that exception in this one, because this K drive is not there in my system. That is why it is throwing an exception, and we are handling this exception. and or we can also instead of like some exception, I can say e dot get message. Okay, I can use this one, and if I run this one, run as Java application, proceed further, k dot, the system cannot find the path specified. I can also print the error message. The system cannot find this path specified because I don't have this k. Okay, or we can use try catch blocks, or what we can do, let me remove this one. Let me remove this try and catch. Okay, so the compiler itself, it is throwing some errors. The errors are, if you see, unhandled exception type IO exception. It is throwing, it is saying that okay, this piece of line may cause you an exception because you may not be able to find this path. That is why it is saying unhandled exception, and you have to use this surround this code with try catch or add throws declaration. Okay, so if you click on this one, it is a throws IO exception. Okay, let me remove this one again. Okay, so it will throw you some errors, and the errors are unhandled exception. We have seen how to use try catch. Okay, and other way is, okay, these are add throws declaration. So we can use throws declaration to get over this exception. Okay, so throws IO exception. Okay, so this is another. Throws is for checked exception. So if you see previously, like we have some. So we have this diagram, right? So we have runtime exception and we have checked exceptions as well. Okay, these checked exceptions are nothing but like we can use try catch blocks for these checked exceptions, but we can also use throws keyword. Okay, so checked exceptions are something which the compiler knows that there will be some exception thrown, and you have to, it tells you that you have to handle that exception. So mostly in those cases we will go with throws keyword. Just since we use this IDE Eclipse, okay, it will tell you like if you use if you do some file operations or database operations, it will tell you directly that okay, this will cause an exception and you have to handle. Just move your mouse pointer over there and it will show you that like you have to use throws or try catch, and use just click on the throws keyword and you will be good. Okay, so that is throws keyword. Okay, try catch blocks we have seen, throws keyword we have seen. Okay, do you understand about this throws keyword? Just practice this
Yeah.
one. Just practice this
Yeah.
one. Just like try to read like some file. Okay, with this file writer, and it will immediately throw you an error. Okay, and then once you move your mouse pointer over there, it will, you can use the throws. Okay. Okay, so I don't have K drive in my system, so it will throw IO exception, but we are catching it with try catch blocks. Okay, if there are a lot of exceptions like this, then we have to use, we have to write a lot of catch blocks, lot of try catch blocks. Okay, and the code will become cumbersome. So in order to avoid this, we use throws keyword and mention all the exceptions there. Okay, we, if you have like why do we use like throws keyword, okay, instead of writing try catch blocks here? Because it will be like uh, it will be if you have a lot of operations like this file operations in a single program, okay, for each and everything you have to write try catch block. Okay, it will become like very hard for writing like each and everything. So in those cases, if give me 1 second. Okay, in those cases we'll use throws keyword. Okay, now we have seen like try catch finally. Okay, they are one set of statements, and throws keyword we have seen. Now coming to throw keyword. Okay, throw keyword is used explicitly to throw an exception from a method or block of code. For example, if we want to throw an exception from a, okay, if we want to throw an exception, okay, then we can throw a checked exception or an unchecked exception using this throw keyword. Okay, I'll show you this example here. Okay, let us say I have a method here. The method name is validate. Okay, I'm validating the age of a particular person. Okay, in this one, if the age is less than 18, if the age is less than 18, then I would like to throw some arithmetic exception. Okay, just give me 1 second, guys. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so this is an arithmetic exception. If we want to throw an exception from our program, then we can use throw keyword. Okay, so in this case, when the age is less than 18, I would like to throw an arithmetic exception saying that, okay, it is not valid. Okay, and I have to catch the same exception here, arithmetic exception. Okay, I'm throwing an exception and I am catching the same. Okay, else welcome to vote. Okay, this is what, like, we can let me run this one. We don't use this throw keyword like much. I have never used like anytime actually this one. Okay, but you still have to understand like what this throw keyword is. Okay, so let me exceptions 3 public static void main. Okay, let me copy this same thing here. Okay, so something. Okay, so there is another main method that we have already created. That's why it is throwing error. Okay, so Control A, Control I, okay, for indentation, and let me make this one. Okay, now let us see this one. Okay, so here, like in the main method, I am calling this validate method by passing some value. So in the validate method, okay, I'm checking this age. What are the age that I am passing? I'm checking this age. If age is less than 18, okay, try throw new arithmetic exception not valid, and I am catching the same arithmetic exception here. System.out.println e. Okay, if the age is greater than 18, then welcome to vote. That's what we are printing. For example, if I'm passing like 20, okay, then if I run this one, run a Java application, okay, welcome to vote, and rest of the code. Okay, for example, if I'm passing it as 2, okay, and if I run this one, run as Java application, proceed, and java.lang.arithmetic exception not valid, not valid, okay, and rest of the code. Okay, so if we want to throw an exception from the code, then we use throw keyword. Okay, let me go into this one. Throw keyword in Java is used to explicitly throw an exception from a method or a block of code. We can throw a checked exception or an unchecked exception. Anything like, if we want to throw an exception, okay, from a method or a block of code, then we can use this keyword throw. Okay, so do you understand this one? So the basic things that you have to remember are like, what is an exception and what is an error. Error, we have already seen an example, which is out of memory error. Okay, what is the example that we have seen for out of memory error?
where we are using a for loop of infinite type.
Yeah, and what we are doing within that for loop?
Actually, we are trying to print. We
No,
are trying to print. We are trying to add a member
yeah,
into the list.
yeah, we are trying to add something into a list infinite number of times, and finally the memory will be consumed, and it will throw an out of memory error. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and that is an error example we have seen. And exceptions. Okay, so how do we handle the exceptions? There are,
Mm, two types, try, catch, and finally another is throws.
and there is throws. Yeah. Okay, so try catch finally, whatever the code that we think it throws an exception, we'll put it under try. Okay, and
Yes.
if something happens, if an exception is raised, then we will handle that one in catch block. Okay,
Catch.
whether an exception is raised or not. Okay, if we want to run something, then we'll put it in finally block.
Fine.
Okay, so that is about try catch finally. Okay, and throws keyword. What is a throws? When do we go for, like, throws keyword? Throws is mainly
When
for
we,
checked exceptions.
yeah,
Okay, that means whenever we are writing code, sometimes the compiler itself knows that, okay, this piece of code may cause an exception and you have to handle that exception. So how do we handle that exception? We can either go for try catch or we can use throws keyword. Okay, so that is about throws. Okay, and
so, but here in the notes you have written throws will work on unchecked only.
no, not
Checked
unchecked.
or unchecked both.
No, throws keyword is used to declare them. These are checked exceptions. Checked exceptions.
No, below this page actually, the next page.
Okay, if there are a lot of exceptions like this, then we have to write a lot of try catch blocks. uh, which one you are talking about?
Yeah, down there. Yeah.
This is a different, this is throw keyword. Throws is
Okay.
different from throw. Throw keyword
Okay.
in Java is used explicitly to throw an exception from a method or block. Here we are explicitly throwing this exception. If age is less than 18, okay, then we are throwing an exception. And this throw keyword can be used for both, like, for checked exception or unchecked. You can throw anything, checked exception or
Okay.
unchecked exception. Okay,
Okay.
so
Okay.
okay, so that is about to throw keyword. So uh, these are the things, like, that you have to remember. The question, like, they won't ask you, like, people never ask like much about these exceptions, but sometimes what they may ask you is what are the kinds of exceptions that you have faced when you are writing Selenium scripts. Okay, that we will come to know during Selenium thing. Okay, for example,
Okay.
if you are trying to find an element on a web page, and if that element is not there on the web page, then you will get element not found exception. That is particularly related to Selenium. So those are the kind of questions that may ask.
Okay.
Okay, about exceptions. Okay, now this is about exceptions. Let's go into exceptions, interview questions. Okay, so what is an exception in Java? An exception is a runtime error. Okay, in Java, exception is an object basically. Okay, exceptions are created when an abnormal situations are arised in our program. Exceptions can be caused by JVM or by our application code. All exception classes are defined in java.lang package. Okay, exception is uh, it's a runtime error basically, an exception. Okay, okay. State some situations where exceptions may arise in Java. So we have seen this one, accessing an element that doesn't exist in Java. What is the exception that is caused here? If you try to access an element from an array where the index doesn't exist in that array, what is the exception that we get?
Array not found. No.
No.
Array index
Yeah, array index.
out of memory. Out of
Yeah,
memory.
array index out of memory, not out of memory. Array index
Yeah.
Out,
out of
out of bound.
bounds, out of bounds
Yeah.
exception.
Yeah.
Okay,
Out
that's
of
what we
bounds.
get. Okay, and dividing an integer by 0. arithmetic exception we get.
Yeah, arithmetic expression.
Okay, invalid conversion of a number to string or string to number, we get number format exception. We have seen this one. Okay, if you try to convert, like, if you want to convert a string to number, the number should be a numeric string. If it is not a numeric string, you will get number format exception. Invalid casting of a class, we get class cast exception. Trying to create an object for an interface or abstract class, it will get instantiation exception. Okay, these are some of the examples for the exceptions. Okay, what is exception handling in Java? Exception handling is a mechanism what to do when some abnormal situation arises in a program. When an exception is raised in a program, it leads to termination of the program when it is not handled properly. Right, a program will terminate in the middle. The significance of exception handling comes here. In order not to terminate a program abruptly and to continue with the rest of the program normally. That means we don't want the program to be stopped abruptly, but we want the program to be continued. Okay, this can be done with the help of exception handling. Okay, in how many cases we can do exception handling in Java? We can do exception handling in two ways. One is by specifying try catch block where we can catch the exception. Okay, declaring a method with throws class. Okay, these are the two ways we can handle an exception, using try catch or using throws class. Okay, list out the 5 keywords related to exception handling. Try catch, finally, that's one thing. Throw and throws. Let me write this third one as finally. Okay, so try, catch, finally, throw, and throws. Okay, these are the 5 keywords related to exception handling. We have seen all this. Explain try catch keywords in Java. In try block, we will define exception causing code. Okay, whatever the code that we think it may cause an exception, we'll put it in try block. In Java, try and catch forms one unit. That means if we have a try, we should have a catch block as well. Okay, a catch block catches the exception thrown by the preceding try block. Okay, so this catch block will catches the exception. If whatever we declare in the try block causes an exception, this catch block will catches the exception thrown by the preceding try block. Catch block cannot catch an exception thrown by another try block. We have multiple try catch uh, blocks. Okay, it can only catch the exception that is thrown by the preceding try block only. Okay, if there is no exception causing code in our program or exception is not raised in our code, the JVM ignores the try catch block. Okay, I mean not catch try block, but will ignores the catch block. Okay, it won't go into catch block. Okay, so this is try catch exception E. Okay, can we have try block without catch block? Each try block requires at least one catch block or finally block. Okay, a try block without catch or finally will result in compiler error. You can just try this one. Okay, can we have multiple catch blocks for a try block? In some cases our code may throw more than one exception. In such cases, we can specify two or more catch clauses. Okay, that means here let us say let me go here. Okay, this one we know that, like, this will give an arithmetic exception. Okay, this will give an arithmetic exception. Okay, or sometimes let's say, okay, this one is I'm dividing this array with this array element. For example, okay, if I try to access an element that is not there in this one, okay, let us say, like, I'm doing it like, something like I is less than or equal to I am using. What happens in this case? First it goes with, like, 10, then it goes with 20, then it goes with 30, then it goes with 40, then it goes with 50, and finally, since we are using I is less than or equal to what is the length of this one? This is 5, right? So it will go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Only index 4 up to index 4 I can access. But since I am using less than or equals to array 1 dot length, it tries to access index 5, which is not there. Then it will fail in that case. But here we are handling only arithmetic exception here. Okay, so if I run this one, run as Java application, okay, it will handle all the arithmetic exceptions. See, it is printing like an e dot get message, but finally it is printing array index out of bounds exception. It is throwing another exception here because I'm trying to access an element from here which is not there in this array. So in those cases I can create like another catch block as well, for one catch block with multiple for one try with multiple catch blocks. So array index out of out of bounds exception. Okay, I can now if I run this one, Java application, proceed further. It's still like let me see. Finally, it has to execute other steps of program, and it is not
I think
executing
we
other.
have to comment arithmetic exception, I guess.
What is that? No, no, no. It will handle like if arithmetic exception comes, it will handle this one. We can use multiple catch blocks actually. Okay, that is what like I'm trying to show. So this is array index out of bounds, index 5 out of bounds for exception. So try this one and catch array index out of bounds exception. Array index out of bounds exception. So this should be fine. This will be executed always. Run as Java application. Still, it is printing the same thing. No, but this should not be the case. Catch array index out of bounds exception. Java application. Still. I'll check this one. Okay. We can. Oh, okay. Let me. X. Maybe we have to maintain this order. I'm not sure. Okay, still let me array index. Let me see if I gave this example in this one. Okay, I haven't given like any. Okay, I haven't given anything in this one. Okay, in some cases, our in this statement, first one which matches the type of the exception execution and remaining cache blocks will be skipped when an exception is thrown. JVM checks. Okay, so I'll check this one. Okay, because we can use like multiple catch blocks generally. Okay, but I'll check this one. I'll let you know in tomorrow's class. Okay, so this should not like cause you any problem because we are already handling this array index out of bounds exception. Current I is equal to 0 for e1 dot get message java dot lang dot array index out of bounds exception line 16. Okay, got it. See this one, the problem here is we are trying to print like something here. We are not handling this one. We are trying to print saying that working on ARR 1 of I. We didn't put this statement in a try block. Okay, let me move this one to try block. Okay, so or let me remove this one. Okay, now if I run this one, run as Java application. Okay, see other steps, this will be executed always, and here I'm saying like Okay, e dot get message. Okay, index 5 out of bounds exception for length 5. Do you understand this one? See, see, I have this statement here, system.out.println working on ARR 1 of I. I'm trying to access the last element, ARR 1 of 5 I'm trying to access here, but I didn't put it in a try statement. That is why the exception is being thrown here itself, saying that array index out of bounds exception, even though I'm trying to handle these catch blocks, multiple catch blocks here. Okay, so that's why I'm commenting this one. Okay, so if it is an exception caused by arithmetic exception, this catch block of this arithmetic exception will handle that one. That's why it is throwing like by 0. Okay, if it gets you like an array index out of bounds exception, then this catch block will be executed. Do you understand this one? Are any questions here?
It is clear now, Subbu.
Okay, originally it was showing throwing that array index out of bounds exception, even though we are handling that catch block here. That is because of this piece of code. Okay, here we are trying to access the array in array 1 with index 5, but that index is not there here. It is 0 1 2 3 4, and that 5 is not there. That's why here itself it is throwing an error, array index out of bounds exception. If we put it like in this one, array index out of bounds exception, then also that would be fine. Run as Java application, and you'll see again like you're seeing the same error. I'm not sure. Catch array index out of bounds exception, system.out.println working on. Okay, not this one. Sorry, we have to put it in try block, not in catch block. Okay, so if we run this one now, okay, it will execute successfully because we are putting this piece of code that is causing the exception in the try block. Now it should be fine. Okay, so you can use like multiple catch blocks here. Okay, sorry. Can we have any code between try catch blocks? No, you cannot have any code in between these try catch blocks. They are like kind of like a group. Explain the importance of finally block in Java. Finally block is used for cleaning up of resources such as closing connections, sockets, etc. If try block executes with no exceptions, then finally is called after the try block without executing catch block. If there is an exception thrown in try block, finally block will be executed immediately after the catch block. If an exception is thrown, finally will be executed even if no catch block handles the exception. Okay, that means finally will be executed always whether an exception is thrown or not. Can we catch more than one exception in a single catch block? Okay, yes, we can do this one. So instead of writing like multiple catch blocks, we can write it like catch, and then we can use a pipe symbol and we can use these exceptions. Let me show you this one here. So here I have used like two catch blocks, right? So instead of writing these two catch blocks, I'm deleting this one of these catch blocks. Okay, and I'm after this arithmetic exception, I'm using a pipe symbol and I'm writing this one. Okay, so run as Java application. Okay, and this will be executed. Instead of writing multiple catch blocks, from Java 7 onwards, they have provided this option, and we can put like all our exceptions in one catch block. Okay, or instead of like writing this like multiple exceptions like this, we can use like one super class as well, which is exception. Okay, like if you write like if you don't know like what kind of exception it will throw, here we know that it will throw like an arithmetic exception, or it will throw array index out of bounds exception. So we can use those individual exceptions. If sometimes you may not know like what kind of exception it will throw, so you can use the super class object, which is exception here, and you can use even.get method. Okay, this will also this will also be good. Okay, fine. Now can we catch more than one exception? Yes, this is the example here. Okay, I have given what are checked exceptions. Okay, all subclasses of the throwable class except error and runtime and its subclasses are checked exceptions. Okay, we have seen this one, the checked exceptions. Okay, Java exceptions. If you see this one, all the subclasses of the exception and except exception and error, that means this group, IO exception, SQL exception, they're all checked exceptions. Checked exceptions should be thrown with keyword throws or should be provided with try catch blocks. Okay, and for example, like for checked exceptions are IO exception, SQL exception, file not found exception, invocation target exception. So these are all like checked exceptions. Normally, like you won't be asked anything like what are checked exceptions, or like give some examples of checked exceptions, something like that. You will be asked like, okay, what is an exception, and like give some examples of exceptions. Okay, you can give arithmetic exception, array index out of bounds exception, IO exception, SQL exception, file not found exception, and all these things. And another question they may ask is, what are the give some examples of the exceptions that you faced in Selenium. Okay, but we will see that one in Selenium. Okay, what are unchecked exceptions in Java? Any subclasses of the runtime exception, this runtime exception, and also this error class, there are unchecked exceptions. These are unchecked exceptions because compiler doesn't check if a method handles or throws an exception. Program compiles even if we don't catch the exception or throws the exception. If an exception occurs in the program terminates. It is difficult to handle these exceptions because there may be many places causing the exceptions. So some of the examples are arithmetic exceptions, array index out of bounds exception, class cast exception, index out of bounds exception, null pointer exception, temper format exceptions, so all these things. Okay, explain the differences between checked and unchecked exceptions. Okay, unchecked exceptions means all the subclasses under runtime and also error. Runtime exception, and also under this error they are all unchecked exceptions. All subclasses of throwable class except runtime exception are called checked exception, except runtime exception and also this error exception. Everything else is a checked exception. Okay, unchecked exceptions are not been need not be handled at compile time because the application will be compiled successfully even though you don't handle them at the compile time. But checked exceptions should be handled at the compile time using throws keyword. These exceptions arise mostly due to coding mistakes in our program. Array index out of bounds exception. So these are all like different examples. Similarly, for checked exceptions, we have SQL exception and all these things. Actually, you don't need. You will get like it will be like you'll get confused with all these things. But you don't need like all these things. I've just written that. I'll take out these ones. What is a default exception handling? Don't worry about this one. No one will ask you about this default exception handling. Let's not get into this one. Okay, can we nested try statements. Yes, we can have nested try statements. That means a try under a try block, you can have another try catch blocks. Okay, but we use these ones rarely. Okay, explain the importance of throwable class and its methods. Okay, so throwable class is the super class of all the exceptions and errors. So what are the subclasses of this throwable class? Anyone? What are the subclasses of this throwable class? What are the subclasses of this throwable class? We have
Arithmetic error.
no. Arithmetic error, they are like there's very subclasses of this throwable. For throwable class, we have exception and error. These are the subclasses. Again, under exception, we have runtime exception. Under runtime
Okay, okay.
exception, we have this arithmetic exception, null pointer exception, and all these things. Parallel to the runtime exceptions, we have, because these are unchecked exceptions. Anything under runtime exception and also error, they are all unchecked exceptions. Other than this, we have IO exception, CO, SQL exception, and all these things. They are checked exceptions. Okay. So for these things, we can use throws keyword or try catch blocks. For these ones, runtime exceptions, we have to use try catch blocks. Okay. probable class and its methods. Okay, we have seen this get message method, right? Get message method, it prints the description of the exception, e dot get message. Similarly, we have e dot print stack trace. Okay, this prints the exception information in the format of like name of the exception, description followed by the stack trace. Let us see this one. E dot print stack trace, right? Sorry, e dot catch exception e1. Okay, e1 dot get message. Okay, instead of get message it prints only this thing, print stack trace. Okay, we want to print this, remove the argument. Sorry. Okay, we don't need to, when we use like print stack trace, we don't need to use system.out.println. Okay, so e1 dot print stack trace. So if I run this one, okay, run as Java application. Okay, so it will print you, for example, for arithmetic exception. Earlier, like we just printed only like e dot get message, so it printed only division by 0. That's what it printed. But now we are printing the stack trace for this one. So what it will give you, okay, it will show you this prints the exception information in the following name of the exception. First it will print. Okay, so if you see, it is printing the name of the exception, which is arithmetic exception. Okay, and then it gives the description. The description is division by 0, and then it shows the name of the exception and description followed by stack trace. Okay, and then it is showing where exactly like it is giving the error. Okay, see the exceptions 1.java line 22. Okay, so this is where it is throwing this error, this arithmetic exception error. Okay, so we can use e dot print stack trace, and the next one is it prints the name of the description of the toString method you can use. Okay, so let us say I want to print like system.out.println e1 dot toString method also we can use. And if we run this one, run as Java application. Okay, so it will show you java.lang.arithmetic exception division by 0. It prints the name and description of the exception, name and description. If you use like only get message, it will get you the description of the message only. If you use toString, it will give you the name and description of the message. If you use print stack trace, it will give you name, description followed by stack trace. That means it will give you the trace. I mean, where exactly it is happening, it will give you that also. Okay, you can remember it in this order: get message, toString, and print stack trace. Okay. Okay. Now, how is final different from finally and finalize? Okay. Okay. We have seen like these two. What does it mean by final? Anyone? What does it mean by final? We have already seen that keyword final in Java.
Actually, when we need to close.
No, that is finally. Final is a
Okay.
keyword.
Yeah, yeah. It is like we cannot change it.
Yes. So final means something which is constant. You want to make a variable as constant and which you don't want to change it later, then we can make it as final. Once we make it final, we cannot change it. Final can be applied to methods. If we make a method as final, we cannot override that method in the child class. We can make a class as final. Final class means we cannot create child classes for that class. Okay, that is final. Final is a modifier which can be applied to a class or method or variable. Final class can't be inherited. Final method can't be overridden. Final variable can't be changed. So that is final. What does it mean by finally? Finally is an exception handling code section. Finally is used in exception handling. Okay, which gets executed whether an exception is raised or not by the block code segment. Okay, finally is used in exception. What does it mean by finalize? Okay, finalize is a method of object class which will be executed by the JVM just before garbage collecting object to give final chance for receive for resource releasing activity. Okay, so finalize is something. Okay, it's a method from the object class, the super class. Okay, it is used by the JVM. For example, we have okay, we have like something this one. Let us say okay, this is the heap memory. Okay, let us say I have created. Let's say this is stack memory. Okay, let us say I have created a string here. Let's say the string is hello. Okay, and this reference is ABC0001. Okay, now this reference will be stored in the stack memory ABC, okay, 0001, and let us say this is string str1. Okay, now I have created a string like this. Okay, string str1 equals to I have something hello, right? So this is how it will be stored, right? We have discussed this one. Now this one, this str will be pointing to this ABC 001. Let us say I have changed this one str1 equals to hi. So what happens? This won't make, because strings are immutable. Strings are immutable. It won't change this location. It will create another object hi. Okay, here, and the location. Let's say it will be. It is ABC002 now. Okay, and in the local memory it will become ABC002, and now it is pointing to this one, not this one. Do you understand this one until this point? Okay, so now what happens is, in this case, this is like an object which is there in the memory, but it is not being used by anything here. Okay, because this now, like this str1 is pointing to a different address. Now it is not being used by anything. So in those cases, what happens is Java automatically checks those objects which are not being used, which are not being referenced. Okay, then it will delete those objects by using a concept called garbage collection. Okay, this is okay. It depends, I think, like I don't know, like at what time exactly this garbage collection process is run in this one, but I think, like for every couple of minutes or couple of hours, I don't know exactly, but this will be deleted. All these unreferenced objects, they will be deleted by using this garbage collection. So during this garbage collection, it has something called a finalize method, which finalizes what objects need to be removed, which objects have to be garbage collected. So that is called a finalize method. Okay, do you understand this one, or any questions?
No, it is clear.
Okay, so we have final, which is a modifier which is used for either variables, methods, or classes. Final modifier is something that cannot be if we use final for a variable, that means the variable value cannot be changed. If we use the final modifier for what is it, for a method,
Class.
that cannot be overridden. If we use final modifier for a class, we cannot create child classes
Oh,
for that class. Okay, okay, that is about final. And we have finally. Finally is used in exception handling, which is a block of which is finally is a block which contains some statements. And if we use finally, that means that the set of statements within this finally block will be executed even if an exception is raised or not. Okay, that is finally. And then we have finalize. Finalize is related to garbage collection. Okay, so it is a method that will finalize, okay, which objects have to be garbage collected. garbage collection process. Okay, so that is about finalize. Finalize is a method of object class which will be executed by JVM just before garbage collecting object to give a final chance for resource releasing activity. Okay, so just remember these differences between these three. Okay, okay, so this is about exceptions. Okay, now let us get into Java file operations. Okay, okay. Before this one, like let me okay, because we have something called a database connectivity here. So before this, I want you to install like something on your systems so that you can uh, do this database connectivity checks in your system itself. Okay, okay. So the thing is that you have to install a software called XAMPP. Okay, XAMPP is a local server. Local server. You can install this one and you can run a local Apache server on your system. Okay, so just go to Google. Okay, okay, XAMPP download. Okay, this is what you have to do. XAMPP download. Okay, download XAMPP and based on your system version, I mean not version actually, this is XAMPP for Windows. Okay, you can download anything here. Okay, this is for PHP 8.5, 8.0. This is fine, I think. You can all are 64-bit. You can download anything. Okay, just download this one. Okay, once you download this, also you download, it start automatically. Okay, your download should start when you have to see it somewhere here. Otherwise, click here. Okay, let me click. Okay, so it started. Okay, so this is an exe file. Just install this one, this exe file. You don't need to change anything. Just click on next, 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 and install this one. Okay, once you install this one, okay, let me go here, go to Google and search for XAMPP download. Okay, download the latest version. Okay, so you can download this version, install this version. Okay, setup. Okay, just click on, once you start executing that one, okay, just click on next, next, next. Okay, and it will automatically select this C colon XAMPP. Okay, in the C drive it will be installed. Okay, just install in the default drive. Okay, ready to install, click on next and everything will be completed. Okay, now if you see this one, if you go to your C drive, okay, I'm going to C drive. In the C drive, you'll see something like XAMPP, not in the program files, but in the C drive, XAMPP. Okay, so this is what it will be installed. Once you go here, okay, to start the server, that means you have installed a local server on your system. Okay, to start this server, go into C drive, this XAMPP folder. You have something called XAMPP control here. Okay, let me see if I have already started this one. No, no. Okay, so you will see something called XAMPP control. So that's what I have shown here. C colon XAMPP control. This is what you will see. Okay, so start Apache and MySQL servers. Okay, just double click on this one, XAMPP control. Okay, you will see something like XAMPP control panel. Okay, you have this Apache and MySQL servers here. Okay, that means you have installed my Apache, MySQL, and all these things. You have like Tomcat server also. These are different servers we have. Okay, you don't need this one, but you can start this Apache server first. Okay, I'm starting Apache server. So now it is started on ports 80, 443. Okay, and we start this MySQL server also. If you start this one, it will start it on port 3306. These are the default ports. Okay, for Apache server, the default port is 80. For secured HTTP, that means for HTTPS, it is 443. And for MySQL server, the default port is 3306. Okay, so once you install this one, once you install this one, okay, then we can view the database here. The database is a MySQL database that we have. Okay, once you do this one, okay, just go to browser and use http, okay, colon local host slash uh, it's not oh, what is this one? What is the database name? Okay, php myadmin. Sorry, something went wrong. http colon local host slash php myadmin. Okay, this is loading. Okay, so this is the database section that you will see. Okay, so install this one. Okay, once you install this one, then I will show you how to install. Okay, once you do you understand until this point? You have to use http colon localhost php myadmin. Okay, this is what I have given all this information. I gave it here. Okay, so start Apache and MySQL servers. Okay, you have started this one, and then I think I have written it like how to install the site in a different page. Let me go here. This is for downloading the practice pages, but I have also listed like how to install current. Okay, fine. I'll put it like in so access this one. Okay, http colon localhost slash okay and then php my admin. Okay, this is the page that you have to access, which will open the database for your whatever database that you have installed. So these are the database that I have installed. Let me see if there is anything like a sample database that we can use. So we don't have like a test database. We have something like okay, so we have something like a PHP myadmin. So this is the default database that we are getting. And if we want to use anything like suppose history, PMA underscore history. Okay, so we don't have okay, select start from okay, we don't have anything in this one. Performance schema MySQL, something we have. So we have some tables under this one. We have columns under this one. Okay. Okay, we have something like under this one. Okay, we can use this one for database. Okay, so this car rental is the one that I have installed on this database. So once you once you install this XAMPP, okay, then I will show you like the database operations that we can do, and we can also install a local site on this one. For example, the one that I have installed is http colon localhost slash car rental. Okay, this is https I have used. Let's use http. Okay, so this is a car rental website. Okay, I'll show you how to install this car rental website also on your machine. But for now, just install this XAMPP. Okay, so this is XAMPP. Okay, I'll put this document in the Google Drive. Any questions on this one, guys? Any questions on how to install this XAMPP?
No, it's clear.
No, it is
Okay.
clear. This will be used for database testing.
Database testing, and also in future we'll use it for Selenium also. Okay, because we'll whatever this website that I'm showing, like this car rental website, you will practice some of your Selenium tests on this website. You will run this one locally on your system, and you will practice the Selenium scripts on this website. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, fine. Now let's get into, let's see what is the time here. So it is 7:48. Okay, so today we have covered like uh, file operations, not file operations, but okay. Exceptions we have covered. Okay, I'll start with file operations and we'll finish it tomorrow. But by that time, please make sure that you install this XAMPP so that we can work on this database connectivity activities. Okay, so file operations. Okay, so what are like file operations? Okay, so the file operations, it means like working with files. Basically, files are directories. Okay, give me 1 second. Guys, just give me 1 second. Yeah, sorry. Okay, so file operations means like working with files or directories in Java. Okay, so Java IO, input output. Okay, input output is used to process input and produce output. Okay, an input stream reads the file and stores the data in process. The output stream reads from the process and writes to the destination file. Okay, input stream means that is used to read the data from a file. Output file means something that is used to write data to a file. Okay, there are two type of streams in Java. They are byte streams and character streams. Okay, byte streams means something that works on bytes. Character streams means something that works on characters. Okay, byte streams were introduced. Okay, this is all the background like that we don't need. Okay, now coming to the byte streams. Again, these byte streams are divided into two types: input streams and output streams. Okay, so if you see this one, this image, so this byte streams, byte input output stream, they are input streams and output streams. Okay, input streams are used to read the data, output streams are used to write the data. So under byte streams, under input streams, we have file input stream, filter input stream, we have like under filter input stream, like we have buffered input. These are like multiple classes that people in Java developed for different operations. Okay, for different use cases, they have developed like different things. For example, if you want to read line by line, we have line number input stream. Okay, similarly, if you want to read the data into a buffer first, we have buffered input stream. Okay, like this, like these are the different input streams we have. Similarly, for output streams under uh, byte streams, we have file output stream, filter output stream, and filter output stream we have buffered output stream, data output stream, print stream. Also, you don't need to remember like all these things actually, because I haven't seen anyone asking questions on files so far. Okay, interview questions on files, but remember that mainly the streams are divided into byte streams and character streams. Byte streams are again divided into input and output streams. Okay, these input streams are for reading the data, output streams are for writing the data. One example, like for input stream is file input stream, and for output stream is file output stream. Okay, that's it. Now coming to character streams. Okay, so all these input output streams, we see that like they are divided into, there are two types of streams, right? Byte streams and character streams. We have seen byte streams. For character streams also, we have something called reader and writer. Okay, reader is to read the data from a file, a writer is to write the data to a file. So reader is like we have like an input stream reader, buffered reader, file reader, like this. Similarly, for writer, we have output stream writer, buffered writer, filter writer, and all these things. Okay, so for character streams, we have reader and writer classes. Now coming to the file or directory operations. Okay, file or directory operations are operations other than reading or writing to files, like okay, so we have seen so far like these different streams. One is byte streams and character streams. Byte streams are again divided into input streams and output streams, and character streams, reader and writer, right? But they are used for reading or writing the data to a file, right? Whatever we have seen so far, they are for reading or writing data to a file. But there are some other operations which are called file directory operations. Okay, for example, if you want to check if a file exists in a directory, or if you want to check if a directory exists, if the file can be readable, if the file can be writable, all those operations, those are not with reading or writing the data. They are other than reading and writing the data, right? So they are called file or directory operations. File or directory operations are other than reading or writing to the files, like checking if a file exists in a directory, creating a new directory, creating a new file, etc. So yeah, creating a new file, creating a new directory, checking if a file exists under a directory, checking if a directory exists, all those things, they are called file or directory operations. They are not with reading or writing the data to a file. Okay, so again, these operations are all provided by java.io.file class. Okay, we have a class called file, okay, which will provide all these operations, like if a file exists in a directory, okay, all these things. Okay, again, these methods can be divided into two things. Is whatever the directory or file operations can be divided into two things. One is methods that query the system. That means if you want to check if a file exists in a directory or anything like this, okay, so that is methods that query the system. Methods that modify the system, that means if we want to create a new file, okay, that is under modification of the file system, right? So these are the two ways under two things under file directory operation. Now some of the methods that query the file system, okay, you can see can read, can write, exist, is directory, is file, is hidden, so all these things. Okay, some of the methods that modify the file system is create new file. That means we are going to create a new file, make directory, mkdir. We will create a new directory, rename to, delete, we are deleting a file here, delete and exist, and all these things. Okay, so this is the introduction about file system. Okay, now tell me, like, what are input output streams in Java? Anyone? What are input output streams in Java? Input output streams are mainly used for reading or writing, for doing the file operations, right?
Yeah,
Hello?
you are right. So, yeah,
Okay,
you are right. So,
okay, fine. Now, how these streams are divided, like, into which streams we have?
we can read only, or we can just
No,
modify
no,
it.
no. Those are the file
byte
operations you are saying. Yeah. What are the
byte
streams?
stream and character stream,
Yeah, byte string and character string. These are the two things we have. Again, byte
Okay.
strings are divided into
input streams,
and
output streams.
input and output strings. Okay, and example is file input string, file output string. Okay, anything that ends with input stream and output stream, those are all byte streams only. See here, file input stream, file output stream, filter input stream, filter output stream, buffer input stream, buffer output stream. These are all like byte streams. Okay, now coming to character streams, what are the divisions that we have? We have reader and writer. Okay, reader and writer, anything that ends with reader or writer, that is character stream. Input stream reader, output stream reader, file writer, buffered writer, so all these things. Okay, now what are file directory operations in Java? Anyone?
Reading and writing the files.
What is that?
Whenever you want to read or write the files, we use it.
No. File directory operations are other than reading and writing the files. Okay. File directory operations are operations other than reading or writing the files, checking if a file exists in a directory. Okay, if you want to check a file exists in a directory, you don't need to read or write to that file. You just check if the file
Yeah.
is there or not. Okay, those are all file directory operations. Okay, these are not like reading or writing. Okay, so all these file directory operations are under file class. Okay, and again these file directory operations we can divide it into two types: methods that query the file system and methods that modify the file system. Okay, methods that query the file system means we just want to check if the file is there, if the file can be readable, if it can be writable, all those things. Methods that modify means create a new file, create a new directory, all those things. Okay, so methods that query the file system are can read, can write, exist, is directory, is file, is hidden, get absolute path, what is the last modified date, length, list files, list roots, and all these things they come under methods that query the file system. Methods that modify the file system, they are create new file, make directory, rename to, delete. So all these things they are methods that modify the file system. Okay, so tomorrow we will see examples on these file directory operations. Okay, we'll see we'll check if a file is there under a directory, and all those things we'll do, and also we'll create some new files, new folders, and all those things using these file directory operations. And we'll also see an example under this using one of these. We'll see we'll use this file reader and file writer, and we'll see how to read the contents of a file and how to write the contents of a contents to another to a file using file reader and file writer. Okay, but if you know one of these, sometimes you may have to use for example in the data driven operations where you have to open an Excel sheet, then we will use filter input stream. No, sorry, file input stream we will use to open an Excel sheet and read the data from that Excel sheet. Okay, so if you know one of these methods, one of these things, how to read the data from a file and how to write the data from a file, that should be fine. Okay, people won't ask you I haven't seen anyone asking on questions on these files, but you have to know how to do these file or directory operations. For example, if a file is there or not, and how to create a new file, how to create a new directory. Better know these concepts. Okay, and after this we will say how to read or write files using one of these. We'll use file reader and file writer for that one. Okay, tomorrow we'll see how to do that one, and we'll also see the database operations. So for that one you need to install the XAMPP. Okay, install that XAMPP first. Okay,
Okay.
just okay, and I will upload this document as well, this installing XAMPP as well. Okay, either you can also have MySQL Workbench, but MySQL Workbench takes a lot of time for installation, and sometimes we may do some mistakes also during the installation of MySQL Workbench. But if you install XAMPP, which is very easy, we'll get a MySQL database with XAMPP. It is very easy. So okay, so install this one. Okay, so any questions? So today we have completed this exceptions class, and we have also seen an introduction for the file class. Okay, once the file class is completed, just remember this. Okay, once this file class is completed, database is there. Once that is completed, the main functionality of Java is completed. Okay, other than that, I have added this arrays class, collections class, random math, integer and character class, and all these things. Okay, you don't need enumerations, but we'll see. Okay, so and the date functionality also you need. These are some extra things. People may not ask questions on these things, but when you are actually working in real time, sometimes you need this date functionality. This is useful. Date functionality is useful. Random class is useful. Because when I was working in one of the projects, I had to create a lot of accounts. Okay, where I had to use some random password. Okay, so random password, I have to create it like myself, but I have to generate it randomly. So we use like a random class there. Okay. But by tomorrow, mostly the major concepts will be all the major concepts are covered. Exceptions we have covered. File operations and database connectivity will complete it tomorrow. So the major concepts of Java will be completed by tomorrow. From day after tomorrow, I will start with Selenium. At the same time, I will explain you these extra things also, arrays class, collections class, and all these things. Okay. Any questions so far?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
All good.
Fine then. Yeah. Sorry, Suman, please go ahead.
No, it's all good. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine then. Okay. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Okay. Thank you guys. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Subbu.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.